Welcome to Leadership DNA, a podcast for those who aspire to be a better leader. Alongside Arturo Gomez, I'm Rob Cressy. Today's topic, the power of just one day. So Arturo, what is just one day?
Well, first of all, it's a quote. It's a quote that I came across when I was doing my meditation exercise on Calm. They always provide some daily kind of inspiration, and so it's actually a quote from an author, Gail Foreman. And when I read the quote, it really just stood out to me. The power that actually exists in the 24-hour period that we call a day is something that I think is remarkable. It allows us to, one, shrink down our scope of our view, so to speak, and if we're really looking at things from a day-to-day basis. And I was told years ago, it was probably literally 20 years ago, I was having a string of bad days, and I think it was more along the lines of bad performance days. And somebody pulled me aside and just said, listen, tomorrow's a new day. Let's not continue the pattern. Let's start fresh tomorrow. And soon, before you know it, that's all in the past. And so I actually took that to heart, and I've really lived my life according to that concept. And so this is why the quote really stood out to me. But so it's an opportunity to continue to build on things that are great, and it's also an opportunity to reset things that potentially are bad or not going in a direction that you might otherwise want them to go. And so a lot can be accomplished in a 24-hour period, but when you look at those 24-hour periods as an accumulation, well, sky's the limit.
100%. And to add some context on what the quote said, it says, we are born in one day, we die in one day, we can change in one day, and we can fall in love in one day. Anything can happen in just one day. And that very much resonated with me because I live my life on a day-by-day, moment-to-moment basis. And I know one of the things that you and I have talked about a ton is our morning routines. And for me, the concept of one day starts with my morning routine. How am I starting my day to boot myself up to becoming the best version of myself every single day, rinse and repeat? And I also think about something else I do. There's a book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And he's got these 10 scrolls that he reads every single day. And if you ever read Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, or listened to any of his podcasts, that was a book that was very important to him. And essentially what I get from it every day is a new reset of being who I want. I am someone who is full of love, who's going to multiply my value by 100 times. I'm going to laugh at the world. I'm going to be generous. And there's so much about being present. And I think one of the challenges that people have right now is they're either living in the past or they're projecting into the future without living in the moment. And to get the most accomplished in a day or in your life, the best way to do it is to have a moment-to-moment basis. And this is something that I try and share with as many people as possible because it really just comes down to being present.
Totally. And, I think it's, if we discuss kind of why it's important to leaders, I think it's important in various ways. I mean, I think in order to be a strong leader, you have to be resilient. You have to be resilient. And for me, the concept of, the power of one day or just one day really kind of speaks to this concept of, at least for me, it resonates because there are days, a lot of them, where I jump out of bed, I'm roaring out of bed and I literally attack the day. That's not always how the day ends. There's fatigue, there's stress. There's a number of things that come across the plate of individuals that really want to call themselves leaders or put themselves in that position. And the concept that I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to rest, and then tomorrow's a whole new day, really gives me, me fuel to continue to push really, really hard. There's almost like this concept of, I know that there's this newfound energy on the other side of this pause, and so that's one thing that I think is important. I think it's also a good philosophy and a mindset for leaders to have, in terms of when you're coaching individuals. You have to have faith that your coaching, that your mentorship will push somebody to a breakthrough moment. That we are, as leaders, we are responsible for the development and achievements of others. And so you have to, again, it goes to this resilience point, but it also goes to the point of just knowing that don't give up on that person just yet. Give them just one more day, and allow that that power to kind of manifest in them, and coach them and teach them. I think the other thing too is it delivers, for me, and I think this again may tie back into the first point, but it delivers a lot of hope for me. It is the guiding light in the understanding that things can change for better or for worse, but that the power of one day allows you to make new decisions and to reset. And so I think that this concept really is important for leaders, because it really is a lot of what at least fuels me and keeps me centered on the goal of making sure that I'm coaching and mentoring people.
Along the same lines as hope, I would like to think that on my end, it's belief, that I believe in the end of my story. I know where I'm going. And even though I might not know how it's going to happen, and it certainly isn't linear, it's more like a roller coaster, this mindset has to give you more belief in what it is that you're doing. And you mentioned something about coaching others. And Arturo, I'm curious your thought process on how we can best help others as leaders better understand this mindset. And just yesterday, I was walking my dog. It was gorgeous in Chicago. And I heard two women who are coworkers who are leaving work have an exchange at the end of the day. That this woman said she was having a bad day. And the other woman said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Get some rest tonight." And I just thought about it. Those are the only things that I had heard. And that is something that is probably a very normal conversation amongst everyday life with people, in terms of not having a good day. What do I do to overcome it? And so often people allow one bad day to become 2 bad days, to become 1 week, to become 1 month. And while we live the one day concept, what can you do to help encourage others, knowing that the majority of people don't think and live this way, even if it is the better way to live?
100%. It's it ties into a lot of the kind of meditation practice and philosophy behind meditation. But I think that I use it. I find myself using this concept in coaching it and talking to people about it so often. And I don't think that I was cognizant of that. And I think that this quote kind of pulled it back out and made me realize that, that I very often let people know. And again, it really comes down, one, there's some internal conversations that I have with myself, that if I'm not entirely happy with the production that I've done in a day, or that there's something that I view as a failure, or I need to get better, I always go through towards the end of the day with this idea, is that tomorrow's a whole new opportunity, right? And so it's the same thing that I coach, younger aspiring managers or even employees, and letting them know, whether it's a conversation that we're having about something that where they have gotten off track, there's always the conversation for me and the emphasis that it's okay. Tomorrow, let's reset and approach this differently, and just try to go through the motions of the things that I'm telling you. Let's try that. And so I think it's a de-stressor. I think it's a real, because it's real. It's not just fictional speak. It is a real thing. Give yourself a break, give yourself a moment, and then reset goals, intentions, and go at it.
All right. So let's get to how we can work on it, the things that you and I do around living just one day that can help other people on their journey. And I know we've talked about some of these things being present. For me, self-love is certainly a big one here, that in order to live on these day by day, moment to moment basis, you've got to be filled with so much self-love, because the inverse is where a lot of people live. And for me, one of the rules that I live my life by, that's a non-negotiable. There is no such thing as 2 bad days in a row. It's the same mindset that I adopt when it comes to fitness, that, all right, I might not go 1 day, but 2 days is now momentum in the wrong direction. So I don't believe in building negative momentum in terms of bad days at the gym, bad days at business. And I would like to think that this mindset has helped me shrink how long something negative stays with me. Doesn't mean that I don't feel negativity or have bad days. I do, but I might be able to shrink it to 3 hours instead of 3 days or 3 weeks, because I think part of this is the understanding and the awareness and an intention of, wait a second, something is going off the rails. And for me, I always use the term from a poker standpoint, I'm on tilt. I know when I'm on tilt, when all of a sudden I can feel it in my body, I'm not in flow. And I'm like, all right, I recognize this. And then I have a practice of forgiving myself and then going and replacing it with something positive. So for me, no 2 bad days in a row is an absolute non-negotiable. What about you? What are some things that you do to be more present for focusing on just 1 day?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the key word you mentioned there is presence. And so everybody has varying degrees of an understanding of their presence, and it's hard. It's something that actually has to be mastered. And I think that people that are at a really, really high level, one, they're able to get to a point of self-management just internally because of who they are. But I don't think that they got to be who they are without actually documenting process and actually documenting this day by day journey. And so the process, I think, of journaling, and you and I have talked about this in previous episodes. I've always been a tremendous note taker and organized. I don't think that I've ever directed that towards myself in terms of gratitude and daily personal goals, daily career goals, in a way that has been as meticulous as I've done probably the last 6 months. And I would say that it creates some real transparency, because you're checking yourself in the morning and you're checking yourself in the afternoon, and you're cataloging this. So I can very easily run back over the last month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, to really understand progress, and to really understand process, and to really understand the days that I caught myself and the days that that I lost myself. And so I don't know that any one person can do it at a high level without documenting it. And I think it's okay. I think that's part of the process. I think you treat yourself as a business or as some other entity that requires real care. And so document it, track it, and you'll have a much better understanding of your accomplishments and your struggles. And so that might be a better way to provide yourself with a guiding map in terms of how to approach each day and know if you're going in the right direction or not.
Yeah, and I love that. And I certainly do that every morning. I have a power list of anywhere from 5 to 8 things that I'm going to accomplish today that are all aligned to the larger goal of what I want to do. So I take a lot of the uncertainty out of the day away by pre-planning it. And one of the other things that I do is every Sunday is when I use time to plan the week ahead. So I look in the next 7 days, I'm writing down each day, what are those things that I'm going to accomplish? And then the night before, I go in there and say, all right, well, was anything else added that I'm going to add there? And by doing this, when you're in more control of your days and what you're going to do, you can live on these micro to micro moments a lot better, as opposed to when everything's just free flowing and you just don't know what you're going to do and you sort of lose your rudder. So I 100% agree with you with documenting the process.
Yeah.
Another thing which has been extremely difficult, but I believe you learn based on experience, based on my experience, is loving the journey. And when I look at entrepreneurship or life in general, we have big dreams and goals. And it's so easy to sit there and always look at the top of the mountain and say to yourself, why am I not at the top of the mountain yet? Why is it not faster? Why is it not easier? Why am I not ... making more, doing enough, all of these different things? It's a very dangerous, slippery slope because, one, it is important to have vision, but at the same time, what you learn is that the dream is actually the day-to-day, moment-to-moment journey that builds you up there. Because once you get to the top of that mountain, you're gonna be like, this is incredible. And then you're gonna look up and be like, well, wait a second, there's a new mountain that I want to climb. And you say, did I really just waste all of this time focusing on being at the top of the mountain only to be at a new top of the mountain? So because of that, I've learned to love and to appreciate every single day, because you never know when something's going to happen where it can be taken from you. And I know we've briefly talked about this previously, but I had a near-death experience running a marathon, and I was giving a second chance at life. And because of that, I see life as such a gift and such joy that I want to live it every single day. And it takes the boot sequence and the affirmations and declarations and gratitude and journaling and all of these different things to tune me into my own presence. And then I do it again at the end of the day. So you've got these bookends, beginning and end, and you're filling the middle with what you said, Arturo, documenting it. So you're following this roadmap, and we get to create our roadmap. I love the quote, live by design, not by default. When you live by default, you just go with the flow. When you live by design, you are living every day because you're creating every day. And to me, that's exciting.
I love it. It's, you know, to the comments that you were making about success and the you know, this, that it's broken down into these individual moments in these days. Another takeaway this morning from, you know, this morning's meditation was that you know, that the concept of, if you chase success, you'll never find it. That it really is a day-to-day, moment-to-moment journey, and it has to be approached. You almost have to forget about that concept in order to be able to achieve it. And so that's probably for another podcast, perhaps, but 100%, man. I think that you and I both appreciate tremendously the power of a day and what can potentially transpire and happen in a 24-hour period. And I think that, you know, people need to embrace that and just know that there's always an opportunity to continue on something really great, and then there's always the opportunity to press stop and reset.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And on my end, when I think about this, it's all about forward movement in action. That even on the bad days, those are actually the days to me in which I am most successful, because I love the quote, prepare for what's difficult when it's easy. And when I'm having a bad day, you're like, well, what are the options? I'm going to sit on my couch and watch Netflix. That's not happening. Or you can get stuff accomplished, period. And it doesn't matter. We're not always running 100 out of 100, but I like to look at that at the end of the day when I've had a day that hasn't been my best and I've still accomplished things. And I think people in fitness and running can certainly understand this, that not every run is going to be your best. But when you do that run on the day in which you don't want to do it, to me, that is actually the ultimate success. And that's the ultimate separator, because so many people on the bad days, they are zero. And I live by the no 0 days mentality. I don't believe in having a 0 day. So if I can just do anything and continue to move forward in action, then Arturo, I'm going to drip what you said. Tomorrow's a new day.
100%. I think, if there's a takeaway or kind of an action item that I would have, just, don't underestimate the power of a day. Really embrace the concept and give it a shot. It really is something that I think will create some real opportunities for people.
And my action item is a really fun one. What I want you to do is to design your perfect day. And then I want you to live it. And this is something, as I looked at my lifestyle design architecture. Hey, Rob, what would you like to do? You're like, what would I like to do? Wow, everything's on the table. So what I encourage you to do is to take one day, I don't care what it is, and say, I'm going to live my perfect day. And here's the beautiful thing. When you live your perfect day once or for the first time, congratulations. With the mindset that we just talked about of just one day, you are now living your perfect day once. So then moving forward, you say, what are the things that I can do to continue to live my perfect day, or at least live more of those elements? And once you get that concept, then you're just going to start stacking more and more of your ideal perfect days. And then that's when you're going to live in bliss. And that's when you're going to have tons of action in your life. So Arturo, really loved this conversation. Where can everybody connect with you?
It's going to be on LinkedIn, Arturo Gomez, LinkedIn.
And I just realized I have one book that can add to this conversation. It's called It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad, who is Russell Wilson's mental coach. It was the best book I read in 2020. And what I loved about it so much is it was about neutral thinking. How does Russell Wilson throw 4 interceptions in a playoff game, yet lead his team back from 10 points in the fourth quarter to win the game? And to me, it very much speaks to what we're talking about of just one day or just one moment, because, hey, I threw 4 interceptions. You can live in that and you can lose the playoff game. Or you can say, you know what? All I'm guaranteed is this snap in front of me. Let me do my best and perform. So check it out. It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad. And on my end, you can hit me up on all social media platforms at Rob Cressy, especially LinkedIn and Twitter. We would love to hear from you about this episode. How do you live the mantra or the lifestyle of just one day? We would love to hear the tips or the habits and routines that you do so that we can share it with everybody else.